Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Chamber Podcast. My name is Grant Lefebvre, filling in the host chair for Rob Johnson, and we are here to talk about childcare. Joining us in the studio today, it's Julie Amy, CEO and Executive Director of For Kids' Sake Early Learning Center in Pinckney. Julie,
yes,
welcome to the
thank
studio.
You. Thanks so much. I'm so excited. I'm excited to be here. This is my thing that I just really enjoy talking about, so I've got a lot of info.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you here. So there's a lot of stuff that you guys do, a lot of stuff we want to get into. But first, I noticed on a website you talked about taking this this play-based learning environment approach. Mm-hmm. So I'm not too familiar with childcare, to be totally honest. So tell me about that and why do you do it?
Play-based is really like the next best thing to being. Children are little, I mean, they're just little people. We have kids in our environment that are from 0 to 12. So when you're talking about a baby, you're talking about a 2-year-old. They've only literally been out of utero for 2 years, right? 24 months. So for us to imagine that they're going to go into an environment and actually like sit down and work a puzzle and do a workbook, it's academic, and it's fine that they get academics, but they can do it in a way that's through play. So for us, the way that I explain it to parents is like, okay, so play-based curriculum looks a little bit, it doesn't look like you're all of, and my age might show here, but all of the adults are like sitting around the kitchen table playing cards, and the kids go down in the basement and you only check on them when someone cries, right? It's not like that. It's very intentional. This is taking theme-based planning, which would mean that every week is a different theme, and you're changing your whole environment to reflect that theme of the week. So let's say that the theme is apples. This is the time of year that's coming up that's going to be fall. Apples are always going to be in our themes for September. Pumpkins are always going to be, we live in Michigan, so this is going to be something that's pretty thematically or pretty seasonally driven. But when you're looking at the theme being apples, we're going to have books out that are about apples. In our science center, we're going to have different colors of apples. In our block center, we might have trees and props that are going to be set up for them to be looking at forests or trees or environments that reflect that theme of the week. If we were talking about bears, we might have a picnic for dramatic play, and they would all bring their teddy bear from home. So it's really not a matter of not teaching. It's really a matter of using the materials that go with that theme to teach them things that they're interested in or that they're excited about. When kids are excited about things, that's when they learn. So that's not to say that every single day they're going to be excited about the theme that you bring forward. You may find that you walk outside and a cricket crosses your path. It might not be cricket week, but you can bet that we'll stop. This is emergent curriculum. We may stop for the whole rest of the day if that's all they can talk about is crickets, and we might use open-ended questions to help go through that day with them that looks kind of like, well, where do you think he's going? What do you think he eats? Where's his family? Where does he live? Where did he come from? So those are all opportunities that adults can take in order to create an environment that's a teachable moment for kids, just based on what our surroundings are, based on what the materials are that we provide for them. All of those things are part of just learning through play and learning through the materials that we give them on each day. And we use themes in order to kind of direct those ideas. But that doesn't mean we won't go rogue if somebody's excited about dinosaurs and it's not February. We're definitely going to talk about dinosaurs.
I'm excited about dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are awesome. I love it. So it sounds like meeting kids where they're at, as opposed to just, here's a Scantron. I don't know if that's showing my age. I don't know if people still use those, but like
not in preschool.
Yeah. Here's a Scantron and a workbook. It's like that doesn't. That feels too dry and too academic.
For sure.
So what sort of brought you to this approach in the first place?
Well, I mentioned earlier that I have 6 kids of my own. So I have a couple of things that come to me pretty naturally. And for me, mixed age is something that I can see a ton of value in. Don't feel real bad for me with 6 kids. My oldest is 30 and my youngest is 10. So I'm still really in this with a 10-year-old. But ultimately, there was a time when they were all younger. And so, oldest guy, it was really important to him to get to school on time. And so in order for him to get to school on time, I would say, hey, you know what? If you could help pack some lunches, that would get us all as a team out the door faster. If you can go grab the lunch boxes, if you can go get your brother's shoes, if you can grab these things that move us all forward, we're a team. And so that's kind of how I approach my childcare world, like, hey guys, we're all here and we all want to go outside. Who can we help to get your coat on? Who can we help to get shoes on? Let's all work together to get where we want to go. And so not only do I appreciate and enjoy that play-based learning environment, but I also enjoy a mixed age environment. And from what I understand, For Kids Sake is the last mixed age environment in Livingston County.
Really?
So it doesn't mean that kids are mixed age all the time, because licensing doesn't allow for environments to be totally like that. But what it means for us is that we have one large open classroom, and we separate the room into individual learning centers by using furniture to do that, or partition walls. And there's a time of the day, first thing in the morning, where kids are coming in the morning and they're acclimating to their day. Sometimes kids want to wake up early in the morning and eat breakfast and get dressed and go. Some kids really don't have a temperament for that, and they really don't want to get up, and they really don't want to eat, and they don't want to really see friends. They don't know why they're on this adult schedule that's going to last them 8 to 10 hours. But when they get there, they have a little bit of flexibility to see who they want, play with what they want, and have an open, meet their favorite friends and teachers, and do what they want for just a little bit in the morning before they're separated into their own individual age groups. So for us, we have a 2-year-old group, a 2.5-year-old group, a 3-year-old group, and a 4-year-old group. So there are times of the day where they all are kind of together, but there's a bulk of the day where they're in their own separate groups, where their teachers are the experts on that age group. They're the experts on the developmental milestones those kids need to learn during that age group, and what they need to know in order to scaffold on to the next age group, so that they can keep getting closer and closer to that preschool and kindergarten knowledge and requirements that they need in order to do that. But typically, when we're looking at that mixed age group and then that team approach for kids, I feel like there's so much value, especially since families are so much smaller and families are so much more separated. I had a mom who's in her 30s tell me a few weeks ago, my mom said to me, you can be anything. You can do anything. You can have your career, and you can have babies, and you can get married and be happy and go live anywhere in the world, and you could do all of these things. And she felt like that was such a joke, because now that she has 2 young children, she says, she didn't tell me that they were going to be sick. She didn't tell me that I was going to miss work. She didn't tell me that it was going to be expensive. She didn't tell me all of those other things that make this such a challenge. So for us to put all of those pieces together and try to be the bridge between taking care of babies and children as if those parents would if they didn't have to go to work, to be that partner with parents and to be that team with parents. You were going to ask me about lower ratio, and that's where this all comes into it. But to be that hedge of protection for those parents and those kids between now and when they pick them up at the end of the day, and treat them as if, come on, we're one big group and we're one big team and everybody's going to be okay. And I love that you said meeting them where they are, because that is definitely the theme of our environment For Kids Sake. We're really about meeting teachers where they are, and we're definitely about meeting kids where they are, because just because you have a group of 12 4-year-olds doesn't mean that academically, socially, or emotionally they're all going to be on the same level. So you have to, even if they're chronologically the same age, you have to make sure that you're meeting them where they are, and everybody could be at something different. So that's another real challenge for staff.
Absolutely. And it sounds like a more cooperative environment versus competitive.
For sure.
It seems like, hey, let's work together, not, who can get this done the first, which
Right.
is sort of, I guess, the more traditional way of doing things. So is that part of it too? Like teaching, hey, working not only with your peers, but also kids of different ages, because most of the time you're sort of partitioned off. Like you don't hang
Right.
out with the older kids or the younger kids, and it could create tensions and things.
I think it's a really great example of how to prepare kids for real life things as well, because we both know as adults working in a work environment, I'm self-employed, so some would say maybe I'm a little unemployable because I have an opinion about things, and that's why I'm self-employed. But beside that, I think we're always going to be in an environment where someone has more knowledge than us or less, where people have more experience than us or less. And I think that's the same. It's a really true depiction for kids as well. And when no matter if you're with the same age group or a different age group, sometimes you have to look at a child whose tower just got knocked down by a smaller child and say, you know what, they're still learning. Let's go. Come on, we'll go and pick that back up, or let's go have them help us, and we'll put that back together. And so it's about being patient, and it is about meeting people where they are, no matter their age, no matter what the relationship is.
Excellent. And you did mention it earlier, talking about the ratio. I understand infant care, the ratio of caregivers to infants is 2 to 1, which is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
How did you do that, and what exactly does that mean?
It's really interesting because I'd love to say that I'm just so smart and I thought of this all on my own, but really I've learned over the last 18 years that For Kids' Sake has been in business, there are a couple of really important things that come from having lower ratios. For one thing, it's an accreditation standard. We're not nationally accredited. I came from a Washtenaw County environment where you don't even go to childcare unless it's nationally accredited. So it was natural for me to bring national accreditation standards kind of to my expectation in Livingston County. I think right now there's only one childcare center that's nationally accredited in Livingston County, which is crazy considering we're right next door to Washtenaw. Maybe it's affluence, maybe it's education. I don't know what it is, but I still tell people about national accreditation because I feel like it's so incredibly important because it's a higher standard of care for kids. So lower ratio is definitely one of those accreditation standards. The other thing was that I've been, in my years of being in this business, I've been the infant toddler lead teacher with a 4-to-1 ratio. I've been the preschool lead teacher with a 12-to-1 ratio with 4-year-olds. Oh my gosh, you don't realize how much 4-year-olds have to say until you're with 12 of them.
You're outnumbered.
And then you can't listen to everything they have to say, and everything they have to say is important. And I can say that as a mom, and I can say that as a director in a childcare center owner. Everything they have to say is really important. And I had to hire people to help me listen to my kids because I couldn't listen to all the things they had to say. So when I'm looking at just as a mom, I gave God 6 chances to give me 2 at once, and he said, no, you can't do it. You can take care of 100 of other people's kids, but you can't do 2 at once. It's something that only special people get to take care of 2 kids, let alone 4, right? So even though those little babies are the most special and important and most wonderful thing that a parent has ever created in their whole entire life, if they had 4 of them at one time, and some have, but most don't, they would have a really hard time caring for them to the level that they want to, catching every single bottle before it needs to be fed, changing every diaper, snuggling them to sleep, singing them a song, looking in their eyes, and then be excited to go back to it the next day from now until forever. That's not real. As a mom, that's not real. You feel like you've been hit by a truck. So for us to have a 2-to-1 ratio is really about taking the absolute best care of those little humans that we can, because we're not selling widgets on the internet. We're definitely taking care of little humans. So having that 2-to-1 ratio to me was just important only because we have 2 arms. 4-to-1 is nearly impossible to feel good at the end of the day and do a good job. The way that people get away with doing 4 at once by yourself is when you have exercisers, when you have swings, when you have high chairs, all of those places that nowadays the terminology is called containers to put them in. And the other consequence of us having those lower ratios is that we don't have any of those containers. We have people actually holding those babies. We have people looking in their eyes. We have people sitting on the floor, laying on the floor, babies crawling on top of people. That's the environment. That's what parents would do if they didn't have to go to work. The byproduct of that came, that I couldn't have planned on my own, but what we know ended up happening was that the staff ended up staying longer. We know now that because they have that lower ratio, over half of my staff has been with us 10 years or longer. That's not something that happens in childcare. I don't like change much. I like to put things on my calendar and to know that that's when they're going to happen. And then, we just came out of COVID where there was lots of pivot for business, lots of change for everyone, and lots of worry. I needed my people. They were my people for my own kids. They're my people for these kids that I've made promises to their parents, and I need all of these people to fulfill my promises that I've made. And so at a 2-to-1 ratio for infants, and then in our infant toddler room, we have a 3-to-1 ratio for toddlers. That goes down the board. We have a 10-to-1 ratio for 4-year-olds. So you can see how it goes all the way across the board. I would like to think that these teachers, I have teachers that have been there 18 years, 16 years, 14, 12, 9, 7. I'd like to think they've stayed all this time. They've contributed this portion of their life to me because they like me. But I know they don't. I think they like me well enough. But I know that they didn't commit a portion of their life to me personally. The reason they're staying is because of those relationships. They've built relationships with those families at that lower ratio. They're able to know exactly what each parent is worried about. What are your hopes and dreams and wishes for your child? And how can I help to convey to you and communicate them to you at the end of the day and know you well enough to know what's important to you? They've developed relationships with the kids. So now they have that knowledge of each one of those children to be able to say, you know what, I think they might not be acting quite right today. How were they last night? Are you feeling like there might be something going on because they're just not themselves? They know them well enough to know if they're not themselves. And to a parent, that's a partnership, because if they missed it first thing in the morning because they only saw them for a couple of hours, they appreciate that and they need that team. But most importantly, they develop these relationships with each other. And so it's like a well-oiled machine. These people know exactly what to expect from each other. And it's actually kind of comical because there are neat freaks in the group and there are messy people in the group, and everybody knows that it's really important to have both. But when one of the administrators, who's the lead teacher in the infant room, gets out glitter, there's a person who kind of twitches a little, and they're really great friends, but they kind of go, oh my gosh, she's doing it again. But she'll get out a bouquet of flowers for sensory for the infants and toddlers to play with. She'll make ice balls with flowers inside of them, and as they melt, the babies can touch the ice and feel the cold, but they also can feel the bumps of the flower inside. She got beets, and they'll play with them, and then they'll cut them open and use them to rub on paper. They can put them in their mouths. They can touch them. They can rip them apart. A head of cabbage, you wouldn't even believe. A red cabbage, you can peel off one leaf at a time. It can roll around the room for an hour. And everybody has experienced it. It's a material, and it's okay. It's safe for them. So all of those kinds of things are really fun, creative things that infants and toddlers in our program get the chance to do. And because they have that lower ratio, all of those relationships make this huge difference with the kids, but then also with each other.
Mm-hmm. Not just spending time, but actually spending time. All right, that's awesome. So you've been doing this for 18 years in September. First of all, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Second of all, how did this start? And then you told me like through 2008, through 2020, you guys have still done your thing.
Right.
Talk about that journey a little bit.
Oh, to me, I'd have to say it's a God plan, because I was not intended. I mean, I have a family full of entrepreneurs, but I really just love families. I really love making relationships. I really love little people. I didn't have the business sense, and most childcare people don't have that business background. I've been combat trained in that business background, and I have to say that if anything at all, COVID brought some of that to the forefront for childcare providers. It pulled everybody together to make sure that we're looking at things from a business perspective. And that's not, I hate to say this, but it's what's made the prices go up so much, because many providers have gone through their whole entire business and their whole entire career going, well, people just can't afford that. I just really want to take good care of these kids. And I know that they can't afford it, or I know that this is expensive, and then feel guilty about that. Those are the hearts that take good care of kids. But ultimately, I still have to pay my staff, and I still have to pay my rent, and I still have to pay insurances. And it's expensive enough that it feels like it should be making millions of dollars. But childcare is not that kind of industry. There's so many expenses. So during COVID, I started following a childcare business coach that was out of Utah. And some of this mentality kind of started to grow and build. And I ended up going to a conference of hers that was in Alabama. And from that, and there's a lot of business growth that came through that. I met my bookkeeper. I met my tax professional through that person. I just, after 3 years of having this specific, fabulous tax professional and bookkeeper, I just met the bookkeeper for the first time. She lives in California. I just met her for the first time a few months ago. She was here for doing a speaking event. And the tax professional lives in Chicago. I've never met her at all, but they're both childcare minded, and they have my budget like in tight lines and columns, and that was really important because we had to keep track of the grants that were coming through. The state of Michigan was doing grants, the government was doing grants, there were specific childcare grants. So for me, I would say that I probably wouldn't have made it through COVID without those grants. But the thing that it did do for us, aside from scare us because we had to close for a little while, was that it definitely catapulted us to that real business mentality of this is what it costs to do business. These are costs of doing business. These are the people we want. This is how much we need to pay in order for them to be able to make a living. And they've been worth it the whole time. We just couldn't find our way to get them any more money than what we were doing at that time. But it was assuredly a mind shift. And this is a business. This is what it costs to do business. And when you up-level your business and you up-level your quality, you up-level your people, the things come. And we were actually we're also the first business in Livingston County that signed up to be a part of the TriShare program, which is a program that's a pilot program suggesting that employers pay a third of childcare, the state pays a third of the childcare, and the customer pays a third of their childcare. So that's one of those programs that makes it really, really feasible if you can find an employer who will participate in it. There aren't a lot of them, but for us at For Kids' Sake, we already gave our teachers a really huge discount because if we wanted them, we would find a way to make room for their kids to be with us as well. One of the other programs that helps parents pay for childcare is DHHS. It's the state of Michigan. Some people qualify. The levels of income have increased for more people to be able to qualify for childcare assistance. So we definitely participate in that. And then the newest thing that's coming up is the new 4-year-old free preschool for in the state of Michigan, and that's called the Great Start Readiness Program. And that is another program that's intended for those kind of middle-of-the-road people to be able to make sure that kids get preschool before they go to kindergarten. And we also are just opening up a brand new environment in Pinckney that's for 3- and 4-year-olds in order to accommodate that program. So we really are trying to do every single thing we can to accommodate parents and to try to help them. Not only do we have to have our prices be exactly where they are in order to do business, but we also are trying to make those adaptations that allow parents to be able to get really high quality care with us.
That's incredible. And I can see when you're talking, I can see the passion that's driving a lot of that.
Yeah.
So I guess tell me about some of what you guys have to offer. Tell me about some of the, I know there's summer programs going on right now. There's more coming up in the fall. So
yeah,
talk about some of the offerings you guys have going on.
Got it. We just had an open house last night. Crazy, like 150 people at our open house in our backyard. We had like a circus level, a hula dancer, performer, a bounce house, and our whole entire environment was open. We invited all of the people on our waiting list. We invited everybody in the community, and we invited all of our current families. So that was a really huge something aside from the new environment we hope to be opening in a couple of weeks. But that was just for our current families, just because it was a beautiful opportunity to get everybody together, let parents start to meet each other again. It's a little funny to see how awkward that people are still as they're trying to get back to being around a bunch of people after COVID, right? So we have picnics in the Pinckney Park in the spring and in the fall. We have a Parents' Night Out program that is once a month for parents to be able to go out on a date night, and the care that the kids receive. It's kind of a slumber party-ish. It's from 5 in the evening until 9. The teachers have a theme of activities and food that they use to get through the evening. But the kids get to put on their pajamas and they'll run around outside, and like there's different things that they do on those specific nights than they do any other time while they're at school. But they're in a building that parents know is safe and secure. They're with teachers that are adults that are trained and qualified, that they know they like and trust, so parents can go out without worrying about trying to get a teenage babysitter from next door. Summer camp program, we have Zant Zone Summer Camp, and Zant Zone Summer Camp is our school-age summer camp program. That has gone on for about we've been open for 18. We've had Zant Zone Summer Camp for 16 years. And that's always in a separate location. Those big kids are really good about, being big kid helpers when they're in our preschool environment, sometimes before and after school. But in the summertime, it's too much to ask of them to sit in little tables and little chairs and play with little kids' toys. So summer for us, for those school-age summer camp kids, is a whole different program that's especially for them. I still have a 10-year-old, so it has to be really fun for her. Otherwise, the customer in that is the kids. Because if they go home complaining about it's no fun, then the parents are then feeling like they're not getting what they are paying for. So if it's really fun and the kids are really busy all day and they're tired when they get home, then parents know that they've had a really great day. So For us in Howell, school started today, and in Pinckney, school starts next week. So we're starting to see pictures come through of kids' first days of school, and that's really exciting. And our kids actually come from all over to come back to our summer camp program because we have such longevity, not only with our staff, but with our families. Some of our families have been with us since they were 8 months old. So there's one little girl I'm thinking of in particular who was with us at 8 months old, and now she's 11, and she's still coming to our summer camp program. We have kids that come from Howell, and we've had kids that have come from Heartland who come together because they're seeing their preschool friends. That's their one chance. Even my daughter, I asked her, what was your favorite part of summer camp this year? And she's like, seeing my people, seeing my friends, because she doesn't go to the same school she doesn't go to Pinckney, so she doesn't see a lot of those kids unless she's at summer camp. So all summer, she's with her old preschool peeps that she's been around for her whole preschool years, and they have friends that last a lifetime. It's really crazy. That's actually my most favorite part of the whole entire experience that I've had in the last 18 years is seeing those connections and knowing that when parents see each other in the grocery store, I'm out. It has nothing to do with me anymore. Now they have just made that community connection. Now they have just made that the kids are seeing each other and recognizing each other. I've done my job. They've now got a support system, and it's in place, and they might make play dates outside. They go to dance class outside of childcare. They now have a support system that they wouldn't have had they not come to us. That's what really makes me excited about it.
That is so cool. I love the way, like, I'm imagining it like framing as like they're building community.
Oh, yeah, that's how it's
community.
Done. Yeah. And we call ourselves a family. Whenever there's a new baby born, we have a private Facebook group. And so whenever there's a new baby born, there's a program that's called the Casserole Crew. And so people make food and give it to the baby families, or if somebody has a death in the family, or if someone has a job loss. Like sometimes people just need a hand, Sometimes things are just hard. And those are some of the things we did during COVID. Even while we were closed, we had a 12-day lottery of I made dinner for, I kind of like to cook. So I made dinner 12 days in a row. Every day I would pick a name, and then I would make a dinner for that family, including dessert and everything, and I would leave it in a cooler outside the back door, and they would come and pick it up. And we had Mother's Day during COVID when we were closed. So we made make it and take it activities for parents with all the supplies. All they had to do was like add water, and it was Play-Doh. And so they could take it home and with their kids make that something special and do an activity. We also did Zooms so that we were staying connected with those people because, gosh, they were scared. And so were we. And we just wanted them back. We wanted to have them in a time when everybody was masking and not wanting to touch each other, and we just waited for those kids to walk in the door. And we did reopen during when it was only essential workers. We reopened because we couldn't stand it any longer. And once those kids crossed that door, we were like hugging them and kissing their head, and parents were hugging us. It was just like, we lived, like we didn't know. So that's the relationship that we have with those families. It is definitely a community.
That is so awesome. I love hearing that. So I did have a question for you because as we've talked about, childcare ain't easy. It's such a challenge, and everyone is looking for, like you said, the teenage babysitter across the street or a different program or whatever. Everyone kind of knows, I would assume, some of the red flags about childcare, but what are some of the green flags? If people are wondering if an option is right for them, if something looks good, what are some good signs you can point to about like, there is community being built here, there is interaction, there is teamwork, et cetera?
Yeah, I think if I were speaking from some of the families, from what they would say, and plus my own knowledge, I would say looking at that National Association for the Education of Young Children, they are the entity that does national accreditation on child care centers, and they have a document, and I actually share this document with families when they call me. I give them letters of reference, but also this list of how to find quality child care. If we weren't quality childcare, I wouldn't obviously be sharing it with them, right? So if they didn't get it from anybody else, then they might know that might be a red flag. So using those guidelines of the National Association of the Education of Young Children, that's going to be a really good place to start. But then looking at, again, those accreditation standards. We don't have TV in our environment. We have depictions of multiculturalism in our environment because that's an accreditation standard. Licensing says you can have TV. They do. You can have TV as long as it's educational programming. Well, what you think is educational and what I think is educational could be something totally different. But what I know from a mom's perspective is if I need to give my toddler an extra handful of Cheerios on the high chair tray so that I can feed the dog and throw some clothes in the dryer and call my mom and pay a bill and start dinner, like, that's my bad. I'm going to have to deal with whatever damage I just did by letting her sit in the high chair a little longer. That's not what parents pay us to do, though. So for us to be giving them all of that attention and all of that opportunity to explore materials and not have the TV, you might need 30 minutes of the TV at home in order to like regroup, switch gears from going to work and then coming home and doing your next role. They don't need to have TV in our environment to do that. So that's also an accreditation standard. Having those lower ratios is huge in the whole picture. Administratively, if things are happy administratively, then the teachers are happy, then the kids are getting a great environment. So anytime you hear that there's longevity in staff, it's not necessarily because they love me so much. It's because they're getting something from their work, and that's what the kids are getting. So I always tell people, ask about ratio, because ratio is going to be a direct reflection of the staff longevity. So I'm not naive enough to think that everybody's going to love my program, but as a mom, I need to tell you this and this and this. And as a director, I'll tell you this and this and this. But one of those things is definitely looking at that longevity of staff, and it's going to be a direct reflection of ratios. They're going to walk around and see if it looks clean. They're going to see if people look weird.
Got to kick the tires.
They're going to know if it smells funny. Their mom and dad gut feeling is going to tell them if it's the right fit for them, for sure. And I can't do anything about that. All I can do is make sure that the environment is great and that I give them, I'm a little bit of an information junkie, so I give them more information than what they need because I want them to make a really great decision that fits their family, whether it's with us or somewhere else.
That is awesome. That is so, so cool. And I'm really excited that something like that is here in our community and just that those resources are available. So I wanted to open the floor to you.
Sure.
So anything you wanted to promote, anything you want to talk about, anything that we wanted to share coming up that we think would be a benefit. So please, the floor is yours. Just tell us about what you got going on.
I'm really good about making sure to tell you about all the things that I've said a lot of the things already that we're doing just by opening that new GSRP environment. We're doing that in downtown Pinckney, which is a space where there aren't any other childcare centers. So it's really unique in that we can use the Lakeland Trail, we can go to the playgrounds downtown, we can walk around a city block, we can see the dogs in the neighborhood, we can take cookies to an old person that we know lives next door. We can really be really community minded, and that's really kind of the basis of what our summer camp program is as well. Kids do bike day on the Lakeland Trail. Every summer has a story from the summer camp, and sometimes it's bike day. If you were to ask the teachers, they would say, oh, it's bike day. It's always something funny to look back at later. At the time, it's usually somebody's dumping their bike in a bush, and they're saying, I'm not riding any further, but all right, whatever. That's just some of the stuff that happens, and we're okay with that. But having that environment downtown is going to give us the opportunity to use the library, which is right next door, which we can't use at our other environment. And it's also helping out kids in our community. There are spaces available and kids and families need them. I have people calling me every single day, and they're surprised every single time I say our waiting list is like a year out. What do you do? I had someone call me this morning saying she has the chance to have an anesthesiologist job. There's going to be this amount of training. I have a 19-month-old. They want me to start in a week. I got nothing. I can't do anything about that. I just can't. And I wish I could. But she's not going to find it. And I would almost venture to say if she were to find something that had something open, I would almost worry about why.
Right. Yeah. If you can find something that quick, that easy, then
wrong.
Is it too good to be true?
Something's wrong. Yeah. Because all of the places are really pretty full. So the state of Michigan has a way that you can go on search for childcare and look in by zip code. You can sort out what licensed childcare environments are available in your area. That's a nice tool to be able to look to see who's around you. If it's an environment that's not licensed, it's illegal. So, I kind of see people, well, my grandma's going to watch kids for 2 days a week. And then I'm like, oh, okay, until somebody turns her in. And then somebody's going to be mad. And
oh, yikes.
And there's no way to, I'm not about having a whole bunch of restrictions, because that creates another really difficult situation to make sure that you're not only meeting licensing rules, but exceeding licensing rules. And that's what's important to me. That's what's important to people who are looking at accreditation. But I'm really excited about our Trailside location because it's going to have that opportunity that's so different from our other space where we can be around town. I'm really exploring opening an infant and toddler only environment. I'm not sure if Pinckney is, if it's financially feasible in Pinckney. I'm going to try to do some research and development on that, but those are the people who need care the very most. It's just really expensive to operate, especially at that 2-to-1 ratio. Our next center will be Chelsea. That's going to be our next, that's kind of where our sights are set next, is to go to Chelsea. And past that, we'd like to have 5. We'd like to have 5 centers. We think we're doing a good job. We think we have a system that's working. We have staff. We have great staff. We still have people calling and being interested. I think we figured out how to find the right people and have them go through a process that makes sure that they really know what they're getting themselves into and that they'd like to stay long term. So I think we have that staffing piece worked out, and we have the good job in the community and doing family-oriented things worked out. And so I think we've got a really good model to kind of keep plugging along at. We have a great team. We have a great administrative team. I couldn't have anything happen without our administrative team.
That is awesome. Awesome. And we want to encourage and support you any way we can. So, and that's part of what we do here on Chamber Podcast. We're so excited to get the word out about things like this in the community. And of course, that is probably going to bring us to the end of the episode. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Julie, for joining us today.
I appreciate it.
Awesome time. And if you want to learn more about this week's guest, what she does, what they do, what they're working on, all of that information is going to be in the show notes for you. So be sure to check those out. They'll be right below the episode. So see you next week.